Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Sports Hut podcast. In tradition with what our recent episode's been like, I'm going to give everyone a little fun fact about everyone in the group. Starting with Bruce. Bruce is 27 years old and plays bowls. I say played. He's retired from it, so he's somehow already written himself out of everything you do when you're old. Yeah. Moving on to someone with a bit more about him. You've got Martin. Martin has some sporting knowledge. He is a youth football coach, and I believe he used to be a goalkeeper as well. Is that correct? Yeah. So saying that, Martin is basically the combination of James and Gavin. So I don't know if that makes him better or they're just discount versions of him. Then we have Shahan. Shahan's a cricket fan.
That's all.
He also says he plays American football, but who knows? And then you've got myself. I am probably the jack of all trades in the group. I have played most sports and failed pretty badly at most of them. But the one I was good at was rugby, and that is where we'll be starting our discussion with the Six Nations, as it came to a close on Friday with Scotland in 5 minutes of overtime, effectively scoring the winning try in Paris to win since 1999. So, how did everyone feel? Well, did anyone watch the final game?
Yes.
Yep. I did actually.
It was wonderful.
Did you actually?
I got most of it. I still think the game sort of consists of too many penalties and stuff, and I really couldn't understand the French boy at the end where the game was over and all he had to do was kick it out and they would have got the win, and then Scotland managed to win the ball back and eventually get a try to win the game. Didn't quite grasp the concept of what he was doing, but aye.
I understand why he did it, but I think they were at the own 22-yard line, and the clock was already red. Like at that point, you literally kick it out, don't you?
Sure. Yeah. To explain why, is because to win, they could have won. That would be fine, but they needed to have, I think it was like at least a 20-point score difference against us to win the championship, which was never going to happen in those 5 minutes. But I think they were just trying to make it as close as they possibly could, and thankfully they screwed it up. So obviously the final table ended up with Wales winning, France in second, Ireland third with Scotland behind, only by a point, which is, I'll take that. But the most importantly, we were above England. England effectively came last, because let's be honest, Italy were written off from the start. So on that, do we think this Six Nations will harm most of the England players who have been in the past the mainstays of the Lions after their shocking performance?
No, it's biased.
I was going to say,
I'm just going to say what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah, I was watching just like a video that popped up on Facebook, and it was like going through the Lions squad, and literally I made out a couple of Welsh players, a couple of Irish players, and then the rest were all English. Mm-hmm. I don't even think Stuart Hogg was in that squad whenever that was. So maybe he was, but just couldn't make him out. So I think it is biased. I'm with Gavin on that one.
So has everyone enjoyed watching the Six Nations, or did we give up after Scotland lost those back-to-back games?
I didn't even enjoy it before then.
I wasn't including you in that conversation, Martin. I know your feelings. What about James? James seems to be a follower.
Yeah, my team's Ireland, as I've mentioned before. So it was a little bit of a flat Six Nations for us. Started poorly, got progressively better, but not great. So finished in the top half, but Ireland should be doing better than that.
I think what was kind of heartbreaking was that the games that Scotland lost, it wasn't by heavy margins. It was games that they could have easily won as well, because obviously I think the Wales game, they were like 17-3 up or something at half time.
I think and the Wales game came down to, I think that was a Ferguson red card, and I think we lost by a single point.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what was heartbreaking, because I think if we would have even beat just Wales, we would have finished on top of the thing. But that again, it's a thing of if and whens.
Maybe. Yeah.
It is a game of ifs, but Scotland. If you said before the tournament that Scotland would win in Twickenham for the first time in 38 years, would win in Paris for the first time since 1999, then you'd expect them to have won the tournament, not finish fourth.
Yeah.
So by only, losing to Wales, losing to Ireland, it's what could have been. And I think Scotland fans in rugby will look back and rather than celebrate the wins, they'll actually say, we could have won that whole thing and we've actually let ourselves down.
We basically do it in most sports. So it's called the Scottish glorious failure.
Yeah. Somehow still came away with more silverware than Spurs have, though.
We won the League Cup in 2008.
We've won 2 trophies this year alone.
Who have?
Scotland.
Scotland rugby.
Yeah.
The Calcutta Cup and the game they
Cal-
have between the French.
The Calcutta
just
Cup
get
and
a trophy for winning a game.
Isn't that how most cup competitions are? You win a game, you get a trophy. That's how it works in the end.
You usually have to win a couple of games to get a trophy, not a game.
I think what Stuart Hogg said was a good point, because he said after the France game, and again it shows the progress that Scotland have made, and again it's a good now that's a foundation. They've set that level and that standard, and now they just need to keep on working hard and progressing and overachieving above that, and then setting the next standard, the next level. I do think it was a good tournament. As James said, it was disappointing, the losses, because they were just like marginal and some silly mistakes costing it. But I do think we do now have something to build upon once again under Townsend.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think this is one of the stronger Scotland squads I've seen, and I think one of the big additions, and I love saying this phrase, is of the jock block that is Big Doan van der Merwe. I think his game, his physicality as a winger, just changes the dynamic of what Scotland have.
I think he broke some sort of record as well of like the amount of like tackles broken or whatever it's called, where he's kind of gone through people essentially, and he broke a record for that as well in the Scottish squad. So,
done what Bruce does at the buffet table.
Tackles, not broken tables.
I'm thankful that the Six Nations is finished though, because it means that Dominic Mackay can come to Celtic now. It's got nothing else to do with Scotland. Get us a new manager and director of football.
Isn't the Pro 14 still going on, isn't it?
Who cares about that?
That's a bit, to be fair, with West Glasgow and Edinburgh doing, yes, very good point.
Yeah, get them into Parkhead. Don't need any of that Pro 14 stuff.
Yeah, you always need a bit of Pro 14. It's not like most of our players play there. And to be fair, if it wasn't for the Pro 14, Ireland wouldn't have a squad. It's where all the Irish players play.
Good for them. Maybe if they didn't play there, they'd actually win the Six Nations.
Yeah, fair enough.
Go Mitchell.
Yeah. So I was going to say, for the Six Nations, I know Martin hasn't watched much of it. Has actually been part of the podcast made anyone watch it more than they usually would, or they still just went a bit, okay, it's on in the background, a bit like cricket, you just had it on the background?
It's made me watch it more. I know that like before I would just normally tend to watch the Scotland games, if I remembered that they were on, whereas this time around I've kind of been like, well, I need to pay a bit more attention to it just in case someone surprises me with a question. I'm like, I don't know. So I've managed to watch the majority of the games in terms of more than just Scotland. I've managed to watch the majority of the pictures, and when I've had chance, if I've not watched the whole game, I've managed to catch the highlights of them. So it's been enjoyable in that sense.
I've watched less, but I remember more, because before the podcast, I'd be watching the Six Nations at a pub in St Andrews, and if Scotland got a try, it was a free pint. So this year, that would have made the pubs bankrupt. So maybe it was good that the pubs were closed.
Yeah. Can you imagine how bad everyone would be after an Italy game? that would be dead. Fun, but dead.
Yeah.
Also, Gav, I love how you say you've actually watched it more for the podcast in case someone asks you a question, and Mark's just like, nope, don't care.
I did watch the one game. I watched the France-Scotland game. And it was mostly semi-interesting, so I suppose.
I watched at pretty much the same level as I did before, which was I try to watch every game anyway, so pretty much the same level for me.
Sure you're not too busy watching Homes Under the Hammer, no?
No, not when the rugby's on.
Surely
Do you-
watching
do you-
Scottish rugby is not different to watching Hibs, Martin, because it's all the backward passes.
Well, you say that, but pretty sure there's a fair amount of forward passing and a few goals this season as well, actually.
Talking about rugby or Hibs?
Well, forward passes are foul in rugby, which I now know.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of them this season. So for the Six Nations, Scotland, good but disappointing. James, how would you rate? What would you say of Ireland's flat? You said it would be flat, wouldn't you? A flat one.
But a stale Guinness.
Okay. Wow, very apt to be in the Guinness Six Nations.
Mhm.
So, if you had to, for those who have watched it, if you had to pick, who would you say Wales were a surprise winner, or would you say it was expected? Just the first two results kind of tainted it.
I think France were the better players as a whole, but Wales managed to grind games out, and that's ultimately what sport's about, getting the victories. And they did it. They got lucky in the sense of red card was their best player, as Bruce noted in an earlier episode. But yeah, you sometimes need luck on your side. You need to put the points on the board, and they did it.
The fact that I predicted a Wales win for the tournament shows clearly, not me being an expert on all things rugby, that they're not surprise winners.
You just picked the name out of the hat, didn't you?
No, I went for it because I genuinely, if anyone was going to win it apart from Scotland, I wanted it to be Wales, and I couldn't see Scotland winning it.
I think 5 out of 6 people here were more patriotism. They showed more patriotism than you did, because I think the rest of us all said Scotland to win, didn't we?
Well,
No,
considering
I
that,
said France to win.
Oh, well, so
Like-
not much patriotism in the Smith house.
well, no, because we don't live in the same house. However, it's a case of
True.
Which is
If
quite,
you're bringing
which is
the
quite,
patriotism
quite
in, but-
ironic when you think about it. But anyway,
I went logically, which is a difference from James, and obviously James showing a lack of logic and let his heart decide over his head, which a man should never do.
All
Something-
I'm saying is, if there was a different, 2 more points for Scotland in the Wales game, my prediction would have been spot on.
However, James, in terms of predictions, myself and yourself got the same amount of predictions in the league table standings, so that was
Yeah,
commendable effort there, big man.
yeah, good job, Gavin. We're the experts of rugby in the chat.
What?
Who would have thought
Because
it?
you got 50% right results.
Yeah. So, Mitchell, our expert, how many of your predictions came correct?
Did I get?
2 out of 6.
I got at least one because I got Italy right. I feel like that might be the only one.
I got one as well, but I put England last and not Italy, so I got Ireland last.
I got 2.
Right.
I had Italy and England right.
So
So,
did
2.
I.
Yeah, me and Bruce were 2.
Considering that Bob said Tim Hedman, and he's still got Italy right, tells you a lot.
Man who is very committed and well played. Fair play to Wales. They won the Six Nations, didn't win the Grand Slam. So moving on to another set of silverware. The F1 season kicked off, and I'm sure Shahan can fill us in on exactly what happened today.
So yeah, as Mitchell obviously mentioned, the F1 season kicked off the first of the Grand Prix today in Bahrain. And Hamilton taking a surprise victory, I would say, because I don't think anybody here was expecting him to win after Verstappen took that pole position. So what does everybody think?
I think Hamilton was extremely lucky with
Totally.
the fact that Verstappen had to break track limits to do the overtake, and where he gave back the position really hurt him.
Yeah.
Waited a little bit, it would be fine.
At the end, he also said, like, you should have just let me finish a race and I would have took a 5-second penalty because he thought he had enough in him to, like, create that 5-second difference. So, yeah.
He was complaining the whole race as well about his diff.
No, I don't know if that maybe affected like the way the end result was, but I think the battle at the end, I think Hamilton's really going to enjoy the season because somebody is eventually finally going to give him an actual challenge for that top position.
Yeah, I think in terms of his diff for Verstappen, I know that he said it affected him right at the start, but I think the problem started solving itself as the race kind of continued. In terms of the track limits, the argument that I saw was the fact that for every single lap, Hamilton was going off at that exact same bit of track.
Yeah.
The same bit of track that during quali and practice, times were getting cancelled. They were getting ruled no times for going exceeding the track limits there. Verstappen didn't really have much of an option but to go out there in terms of to actually make sure that the two of them finished the race. And yeah, as Mitchell said, if he kept going, he probably could have built up a bigger gap. But in terms of Mitchell saying that Hamilton was lucky, I think it's been a very, very well tactical race for Mercedes in the sense of they changed their strategy halfway through the race and swapped Bottas to the strategy B in order to keep Verstappen getting pushed so they could pit Hamilton and get the undercut.
But then they end up making a mistake with his Bottas's pitting as well.
Right, yeah.
Then it was like a 9-second pit stop for him,
Yeah.
which I think actually gave the top two a little bit of a room to breathe.
But he came out and he was at the end, Bottas, and he was speaking to Total Wolf, and he was obviously there's no mics on it, a private conversation, but it did look like Bottas was very annoyed at it, and he obviously he got pitted. I think it was the second last lap to try and get the fastest lap extra point, and he did get it. But I don't think he was too happy with that because he wanted to keep going on that tires from what I heard.
But I would have argued, like, back to Bottas, that was a good strategy because that one extra point that was going to Verstappen didn't actually go to Verstappen. It came to Mercedes instead now. So
I think that's where Mercedes had the benefit of having both their drivers involved in that sort of front battle, where they used Bottas to kind of keep pushing Verstappen while they could pit Hamilton. And they had as the backup gunner, as they call the second driver, even though they try and say that there's an equal driver status. There's no one, a first driver and a second driver. That's not true.
Yeah.
I do think that's where they had the advantage today.
Yeah. So what does everybody else say? Oh, sorry, Mitchell, on you go.
I was going to say I agree with Gav that Mercedes having both the Hamilton and Bottas could have the tactics to their advantage. I think, as you said, like screwing up Bottas's pit stop, didn't really screw it up. The front right tyre wasn't for coming off, and if that had worked, that pit stop went as intended. I think Hamilton would have had a lot easier run into the final. He wouldn't have had Verstappen on his tail. He would have had that buffer of Bottas behind him.
Yeah, definitely. So there was other brilliant performances from some of the other drivers like Lando Norris and Perez. I think Perez obviously with having a little bit of an issue at the start, starting from pit lane and then end up finishing 5th, I think it was. And it was only a couple more laps and I think he would have had Lando Norris as well. So what does everybody think about the kind of other drivers, other even teams, McLaren and Ferrari doing really well in this Grand Prix? Anybody have any opinions on?
I had that on the group chat before it started, the first, second, third, and I had Perez to be third, and then he had to start for the pits. So that got swiftly changed before the start of the race. But I mean, he's done well to get up to that point. I think if he had started from where he was supposed to be starting, he would have got up to third, or at least challenged Bottas. Been somebody challenging Bottas.
So does anybody actually know what the issue was? Because sorry, go on.
I think it was just a power/electrical issue. Like I don't think they understood what it was when it happened. I don't know if something came out after the race. I've not listened to the notebook.
Nothing I've seen so far, but I just know it was a power issue. And if you watched on his on cam, it showed you just the whole device just shutting down, which was, I think, it would be a scary thing driving at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And
no, I've seen that.
Everything just switches off.
Apparently, like Pierre Gasly had an issue, and then that was flagged up by Perez's team as well, and that's the reason it changed both of theirs. And then Gasly never did really well either.
I think Gasly was unlucky. I think Gasly was very unlucky. The Alpha Tauri seems to be a fast car this year, and I think Yuki Tsunoda showed that he was capable of putting the car in the points. Obviously, for a rookie driver, he's the first driver who was born after the year 2000 to be driving on the F1 grid, and for him to get that car in the points, Gasly is kind of expected. I think he was unlucky because of the incident with his front wing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have been up there as well, I think. My big thing in terms of the driver, I think if it wasn't for Perez starting further back, he probably wouldn't have had such a good race in terms of overtaking, but he was probably the driver of the day.
I still think I was going to say, I still think the driver of qualifying has to be Mazepin, just because he screwed up Vettel in so many ways.
And he screwed up the first corner in the race.
Yes.
First corner.
Yeah, that was just like, oh wow.
But that's an interesting point, is the fact that both Haas team drivers made the same mistake. For Mick, it wasn't kind of fatal, if you want to say, in terms of it didn't stop him from finishing the race.
Yeah.
But it was the same issue that they both had, no one around them, and they both managed to get the crash. I think that's an issue with the Haas car.
Do you think they would put too much faith in the car? Or is it just inexperience?
I think it's inexperience mainly, because I think obviously listening to the commentary, they were like, you see it, they're kind of going along fine, and it's kind of the back end sort of starts to wiggle because they've just got on the power far too quickly and lost it. So I think it's just being a bit, especially for both of them, so both came from F2, just understanding like you put your foot down, it's going to go a bit quicker.
Yeah. So obviously, like we've seen that Vettel had to start from the back of the grid, and then at one stage I thought he was going to be the best driver of the day, because he'd made up like 12 spaces in the kind of first couple of laps. I know the first couple of laps were horrendous in the sense of they were all kind of yellow flagged almost. So, but at the end of the day, I think he just drove horribly.
He's a whiny bitch.
Yeah, I was going to say his
crash,
his crash with Ocon, and what he said in the video afterwards summed it up. He's changed his line. It's like the guy's turning into a corner. You went straight into the back of him because you've lost downforce. Like
he said the exact same thing in his interview. He said he moved, like, no, you're driving. You did a lock up, going over onto the racing line to try and line up the corner. Ocon's just turned into the corner, as you do when you're turning a corner. Funnily enough, he's whiny, he's moany. He doesn't like it when things don't go his way. He's a typical Rangers fan, you know.
Don't talk about Bruce.
Do you think he's not really? Do you think he's not really like kind of showing himself as a champion, because he is obviously a 4-time champion? He's not really driving like one, is he? Like he's whining about little things and putting off the blame almost, isn't he?
He's lost the motivation.
All I know is he saw the back of George Russell's car today.
And that's your boy, isn't he?
That's me, Williams' #1 fan, obviously new to the F1 thing, but I quite enjoyed it. I think I tuned in from lap 28 today. That's about the halfway mark, and it was interesting. I'll keep an eye on it going forward. I quite enjoyed it.
I think the last kind of 5 or 6 laps were really, really fun to watch, just the kind of battle at the front. So just to kind of sum up a little quickly, who did everybody think was their kind of driver of the day? James, I'll start with you.
Jesus was on the back of the donkey and got into Jerusalem perfectly. It is Palm Sunday.
Yes.
I didn't watch the F1. I was at church. So there you go.
Okay, fair enough. Gavin.
As much as I think someone like Tsunoda deserves to get praise for the way he drove in terms of being his first race and rookie getting into the points, I do think the driver of the day has to be Sergio Perez, kind of overcoming his difficulties, and everyone was kind of like, is he going to be able to start the race? Is he even going to make it halfway through the race? So for him to get into the points from the back of the grid to the pit lane and then the back of the grid after the safety car restart, I think he's shown that he can be doing something in that Red Bull. So he's my driver of the day.
Okay, Martin.
I was going to say Perez as well. But there was a few throughout the race. There was a couple of Alonso back in it. I think best race of the day is probably Perez.
And Bruce?
George Russell.
Well, do you know, Max Verstappen was pretty good. However, George Russell did it for Williams. Good race for the first one in. George Russell.
Okay, Mitchell.
I'm gonna throw out Lando Norris. I think I think having the McLaren under him now is going to improve him, and I think he did have a great race. So he finished fourth, didn't he? Am I right?
He did finish fourth, yeah.
Finished fourth, which is still considering who was up there, who was up there near the start of the race. I think that's a great finish for him, and hopefully it's just the start of things to come before he just throws Hamilton as Britain's poster boy.
Yeah, I'm totally with Mitchell. Potentially maybe because Lando drives for my favourite team, McLaren, but I genuinely think he's really consistent, or he has been consistent over the kind of full weekend, kind of positioning himself well, and I think he ran a good race, showing a real good heart going forward. And talking about hearts, obviously, Gavin is a Heart supporter who has had some terrible games. So I will leave that to Gavin to explain.
Don't sugarcoat it, mate.
Heart on your sleeve and all that.
Yeah, well, it's come to what you guys have been looking forward to the most. I hope you're all ready. I've got the popcorn ready. Yeah. Martin, I know he's got his wooden spoon out, ready to get going. See, he's got his wooden spoon out. So yeah, I'm sure Bruce has got a fishing rod there somewhere. So Hearts. What can I say about Hearts? Big week, not for the good reasons. Tuesday night, shambolic loss to Brora Rangers, first loss to a non-league team since 1900. Then following it up, thinking we need to get back into the fans' good books after unanimous voicings of opinion and anger, and then we decided to follow up with a 3-2 loss to Queen of the South and losing for the first time in 58 years to them. So yeah. I think I've said to you guys, it's been a shambolic time. Christoph Berra came out and said the worrying thing is it's been coming, and it has been coming since the 12th of February. We've played 8 games. In those 8 games, the Brora game was a cup game. So 7 league games, we've won 10 points. 2 wins, and one of them we were lucky to even get a win out of it.
Not good, is it?
You've got people like Levine criticising Hearts, which is a worry. We've got protests outside Tynecastle, protests outside Ann Budge's own house, which I think is shambolic from a Hearts fans' perspective to see
I thought
minority of Hearts fans. They are. This is the thing. The club released a statement saying that wanting fans to stay at home after hearing rumours on social media. That didn't happen, but they're saying we need to get back on track, get us to the success of the season to win the championship, setting 13 points clear with 5 games to go. But winning the championship for a team of Hearts' level is as much a success as remembering to brush your teeth in the morning. It shouldn't be really classed as success. And this is, I'm having a rant now. I just kind of want to know. I know you guys are kind of wind up merchants, and the best of times this is going to be a brilliant topic on this. Is what do you guys make of the situation from I would say neutral, but Martin is anything but neutral in this perspective.
I want to start first. I think Bruce will dispute you that winning the championship is not a big achievement. It's like the only other trophy they've won in 10 years.
He's gone quiet.
He has gone quiet.
Anyway,
what I was going to say, I'm ignoring Mitchell, right? I'm ignoring him. What I was going to say, Gav, was I didn't see a big outlash about all the Hearts fans gathering outside Tynecastle. But as soon as some people get together outside Ibrox, it's World War IV. Do you know what I mean?
There has been a big outlash. It's just you've not seen it.
There needs
in terms
to be
of
Indeed, well, That's what I'm asking. I genuinely haven't seen it. So has there been a big outlash? Because I've not seen anything about it. And I've been, trust me, I've been looking.
In terms of on the Hearts forums and stuff, there has been a big outlash. I know that the Record ran a story about it as well. So I know that there has been an outcry for action made against the fans. I know it wasn't many. It wasn't as big as the ones that we've seen this season as well with Rangers and Celtic. But it's one of those things that you do understand the frustrations. They've aired it in the wrong way. But now there has been an outlash from other fans, especially the Ann Budge, her house situation. That's been kind of been thrown out of far. That targeting someone's personal house, personal property, personal life it's not acceptable. And there's many Hearts fans in the forums that I'm on who are outraged at the few individuals who made that their way of voicing their concerns.
I think my favourite bit about it all was Stephen Mackay, the Brora Rangers manager, came out and said, we had a friendly against Bucky, and that's about all we've had, a couple of training sessions.
Brora
that just prepares you for beating the Hearts.
Brora have played one game in 2021.
Do you know what I mean?
So this is where
against Bucky Thistle.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Hearts, and that's who they beat.
No, the only competitive game they had was against Bucky Thistle. Anyway, the problem the Hearts have had is they've overachieved for a long time. Romanov came in a long time ago and bought their club when they were struggling and put a lot of money at it. And he's when he disappeared, the money just wasn't there. Then obviously, if it wasn't for the leather-faced hag stepping in, the club would have died, much like Rangers. And at that point, you're thinking, right, they'll do the right things. They'll stop sort of buying stupid amounts of players and getting to the point of that. But they've overachieved for a long time. And I think what they've done with their managers, I mean, they've either kept their managers too long or they've got rid of them too early. I think, Gavin, you can't disagree with that.
We've been far too nice, and it's we've appointed the wrong people. So I think Gary Locke got us up from the Championship. Did a brilliant job. Gary Locke, we went in with him.
Yeah.
But then obviously Neilson came in. He managed to move to pastures new to MK Dons. Was a shambles down there, but in his first spell he was in charge for one of our worst defeats in terms of we lost in the Europa League qualifiers to Burkakana. I don't know who they are either, guys. Thanks for letting me know. Then we've also had Ian Cathro come in. It was a good idea, but it failed for us.
Cathro on paper could have been a good signing.
He could have been, but he never had the right support system behind him. He had Craig Levine behind him, so it was never going to work. So he went away. Then we had a chance to bring in someone. We brought in Craig Levine from above the fucking stands, and we were too long in getting rid of him. Same way we were too long in getting rid of Cathro. Eventually, after he stopped porking Ann Budge, we got rid of him, and we brought in Daniel Stendhal, who I've said at the start of one of the first podcasts we had that I would have loved to see Daniel Stendhal stay and see what he could have done with the team. But then we got rid of him. We brought in Neilson, and this is the thing: is will we hold on to him for too long? Some of our biggest defeats came with him being in charge. That one against Burkakana, the one in Brora now. I mean, it's how long can it continue? You know, I've got written down here about Brora having the one game, but you're saying we've overachieved, Martin. Hearts have been the Scottish Cup finalists for 2 years running. We have been the closest team to beating Celtic in the Scottish Cup in terms of in December. I don't think we've overachieved. We are, in my opinion, we're a big club. Ewan Cameron from Fourth Radio came out and said that the third best team in Scotland. I wouldn't go that far. I would say in terms of historically, we're the best team in Edinburgh. At the moment, we aren't. I'm not afraid to admit that because we're not playing in the best league. However, we did
because Edinburgh City is far better than you guys.
However, we did beat Hibs in the semi-final, which for you guys would be a bit of an embarrassment. But
it was massive.
It was, yeah. My thing is, we should be up there. We should be challenging for that third place in the Premiership. I'm fed up of the whole bringing a new manager in. Oh, we need a transfer window to overhaul the squad. Oh, wait a minute. I never got who I wanted. I need another transfer window. I need another transfer window. Craig Levein said when he got the job, he wanted to be based off 2 transfer windows. Came into the third transfer window, approaching the 4th. I just need one more, guys. We have had one of the biggest overturns of players in recent Scottish history. In terms of, if you look at England, compare 2 teams who used to just buy players religiously. You've got Sunderland and Leicester. Both of them would buy players. Sunderland kept doing it. Leicester stopped doing it. Leicester got a system in place, got their academy working, had a kind of policy on what areas they need to improve and how many players they're going to bring in. Sunderland just kept going out and spending money. Look at the 2 of them now. Leicester won the league. Sunderland are sitting in League One. Will that happen to Hearts? I think it would be lucky. We will genuinely be lucky if we win this championship the way we're playing.
I think from looking back at Hearts, like from their last relegation promotion to now, you look at what I think is when Hearts went down, they got in young Scottish players who knew what it meant for Hearts. As Martin said, they didn't go out and just start spending willy-nilly. And then when you came up, he's had a great run. Then you started buying again, and then you've seen the decline, and again you've got relegated. I think it's a case of Hearts need to have a better look at who they recruit and try and stick with the young players as much as they can. Also, it doesn't help when you're having to sell them to teams like Bologna and such from Italian leagues. But if they're going to there, just let's be honest, it's a bit of a step up going into the Italian league from the Scottish leagues. It shows that Hearts do have promising young players.
We've paid for an academy that at the moment isn't producing. And this has been one of the arguments for the Foundation of Hearts members who have pulled their subscriptions to that, is that they're paying for things that promises aren't getting utilised, such as the academy. Ann Budge was meant to be transferring the powers over to the ownership over to the Foundation of Hearts. That's been delayed due to COVID. So there's been a lot going on behind the scenes that the fans are also now getting frustrated at, and it's the fact that on the field kind of results aren't as good as they should be now, and it has been coming for a long time. And it's frustrating. How long can you sit and deal with it? And, you know, as you said about the last time we got relegated, I think I spoke to Bruce and Martin about this many times, that we broke up that team far too quickly. And that was a league that we weren't meant to win, because you had Hibs, because you had Rangers. No one thought that Hearts would be the ones to win it, because compared to those 2 teams, we were the weakest out of those 3. And we walked that league. Absolutely walked it. So where's the difference between then and now? Are we walking this season? Aye and no. The recent results don't say that. Is it a case of it's a manager issue?
The interesting thing is, I was looking up the expected goals results from Hearts' performances since the 1st of February, and they should have won every game bar the Dundee game. The Dundee game, Dundee should have won, but every other game, Hearts won on expected goals. Against Brora Rangers, it was 0.9 to Brora Rangers and 2.27 to Hearts. And expected goals actually judge the performance rather than the results. So if you're winning expected goals games every game bar one, I think you're panicking rather than actually judging the performance of teams or judging the performance of Hearts. Hearts have got very high expectations this season. You should win the championship, and you're expecting to coast it. You're going to win it. If you're 13 points clear with 5 games to play, you're going to win it. You're going to be back in the top league.
Play recently.
Yes, I've told you. You should be winning the games statistically. Mm. So you've been the better performers in each game. So I think you are panicking. I think you wait till the end of the season and you thank Ann Budge for all that she's done for the club, because if it weren't for her, you would have been in the 3rd division as the Hearts of Midlothian Football Club.
I agree with that. I do think Ann Budge needs to be thanked, and she needs a lot of credit for what's happened in terms of the turnaround of the squad and how much we've been able to achieve in terms of, I think it was 2019, we were the second highest grossing income wise from the teams in Scotland, just behind Celtic, who had all the money from that from Europe. And that was a season that we also started construction on or finished construction on our new stand, which again cost a lot of money. So she's done brilliant things for the club as a business. So she does need to be thanked. It is just one of those things where Robbie Neilson turned around this weekend and said that we need to get confidence back. We're 13 points clear. This is something that he keeps saying. We're 13 points clear. We're 13 points clear every interview. But we need to get confidence back. I was speaking to Martin about it. There's been two players who have been absolutely amazing for us this year. Michael Smith and Craig Gordon. They've not played the last couple of games because they've been on international duty. Surely a team such as Hearts should be able to have enough depth that they can cover two kind of star players and not get embarrassed.
Yes, but as I said, you should have won the Brora Rangers game. Not as in you should have won it before the game. According to the performance, you should have won it.
We should have, but we didn't. And this is the worry.
But they didn't.
I know they didn't, but sometimes football has freak results and fans get emotional and panic. And take a step back and actually look at what happened. Be rational about it. Statistically, Hearts would have won that game 80% of the time if you were to replay the game constantly. It's just the fact that it's one of those nights and then panic sets in. It reminds me of actually the final season of Ronnie Dyler at Celtic, where Celtic were winning the league, but we weren't winning the league good enough. And the fans were panicking. I was like, we won the league, that was the objective. And yes, there was a bit of disgruntled, but rather than panic and change during the season, wait till the end of the season, get promoted, and then make your decisions. But changing your manager with 5 games to go is going to make zero difference.
James, you're saying that we should have won. Wait now, James, you're saying that statistically we should have won the games.
Yeah.
Football's not based on statistics. Unfortunately, we didn't win the game, right? But but you're waiting now. You're saying that it's been a case of we should have won the game statistically. We didn't. If we played it over, we would have won it. And it's one freak result. It's not one freak result. We drew against Queen of the South. We drew against Morton. We drew against an Inverness Caledonian Thistle team that didn't have their manager or their coaching staff.
And every one of those games, your expected goals was higher than the other team. So statistically, you should have been winning those games, which means you performed better.
This is the issue.
You're performing better than your results are. That sometimes happens in football.
The game against Dundee, we won. We got lucky to win it. We bet Ayr. We then drew against Arbroath, the team we should be beating. Brora Rangers, and then we lost against Queen of the South.
That's old school thinking.
James is just trying to justify what happened to Celtic.
No, I'm not trying to justify what happened to Celtic. Celtic had an atrocious season. Celtic fans will admit that. But it's very old school thinking, saying you have to base a manager on their results. Football results are part of luck. They fluctuate. Sometimes you can have the best teams play the best game and lose. Celtic bet Barcelona 2-1. Are Celtic better than Barcelona? No, they're not. It's just freak results happen in football. You have to judge the teams on their performances. And this season, in the past 8 games that you've been speaking about in Hearts, they should have won 7. The only game they should have lost was against Dundee.
And this whole game we won and we were lucky as anything to win it. I know freak results happen. However, the performances might say statistically we should have won it, but we didn't. We didn't score the goals. Therefore, we drew games.
So what years?
I've not muted him, by the way.
Typical Hibs fan.
Yeah, we didn't hear you, Martin. You froze.
Is he back? Are you back, Martin?
Yeah. What I said was, James, what you're saying is that Neilson must stay.
I'm saying till the end of the season.
But James, football's a results-led business.
Old school
you
thinking.
Don't get the results.
Old school thinking.
Well, you get the results. If the results bring points, performances don't bring points, James. Results bring points, points bring trophies.
But
you'll not know that this season. You'll not know that this season, but results bring points and points bring trophies. 55 trophies, yeah.
Well, you did win 55 trophies this season. You won 1. And just
exactly 1 on top of the. But anyway, the results bring points. result bring points, points bring
But
trophies.
it's a
Performances over a season
it's a
don't bring
very
trophies.
short-sighted approach. If you just say a bad run of results, sack a manager, even though the performances indicate you should be winning the game, then you're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to keep changing manager, changing philosophy, overhauling squads. You have to have consistency in football, and if performances are meriting results, give the manager time to implement his philosophy, get a couple more players in, and keep it going. If they were losing expected goals every game, then I would be panicking and saying you should be going. But you're going to be promoted. Your results are worse than your performances indicate. So give them time, let them get a couple more players in, and take them up to the Premier League.
So
But
do you
then
think
the question now
sorry,
is
go on, Gavin.
sorry, Shahan, but like the question then is how many, as I said before, how many transfer windows, how many players need to bring in, how many overhauls of the squad do you need to have?
Are you going to
And
have more if you keep sacking your manager?
Well, it's the way it's going anyway. We're still having overhauls. We had Levine in charge, and he overhauled the squad 3 times in his term there.
That's also
Where does it stop?
because you're
You have to
still
pick
in
a
the
good
Romanov
manager to bring in
mentality.
first.
You're in the Romanov mentality where you sign players on 2-year contracts and you don't have any long-term planning because you hope within that year you can sell them on. It's a very short-sighted, results-driven business model that Hearts have got in play, whereas you should be looking long-term. But the reason why you don't do that is because you don't get immediate results. Hearts would prefer to have the odd Scottish Cup, the odd League Cup, rather than having a sustainable business model which allows the team to progress over time.
When you were saying about managers earlier, so do you think like then there should be no kind of mid-season sackings then for managers?
No, I think, well, I wanted Neil Lennon gone. So I would be a hypocrite to say that there should be no mid-season sackings. But I think you have to judge performances, not results. Fans can get very emotional very quickly in football and say, oh, we've not won a couple of games, we need to change something. And the manager's the brunt of it. But take a step back, be rational about it, and actually examine the performances. And statistics do tell you that. The expected goals matrix will revolutionise football when it's probably taken off.
Yeah.
Liverpool have adopted it, Brentford have adopted it, and more teams are slowly adopting it. And those teams who have adopted it have tended to do better in the long term.
How's that working for Liverpool this season?
Well, they won the Champions League and the league in the past couple of seasons. I think it's doing pretty well for them.
I
wouldn't
struggling
say
this
that it's,
season.
I wouldn't say that it's a. I understand your point, James, about performances in terms of stats and performances. You can get a lot of things from Iron to up. However, I know for the fact net forms and stuff. The Brora Rangers game, we did not play anywhere near our capabilities, and the performance wasn't as good as it should have been. As much thing getting X amount of chances, X amount of shots on target, that the stats are showing up, but it doesn't tell you the exact amount of in terms of how the performance was.
Expected goals doesn't look at shots on target and shots on goal. It actually looks at the probability of each shot being scored, and it's basically the quality of chances being created turning into goals. And Hearts should have won that game because of that. So Hearts played better compared to Brora Rangers, and they should win the game by that.
But then
They performed better than Brora Rangers. That's a game of football. You have to perform than the better team, and usually that will lead to winning the game. But football,
that's key. The key word there is usually.
Yeah, it is usually.
But and at the end
football
of the day,
is a game of random events. There's about 3,000, 4,000 individual events that happen in a football game that you statistically cannot drive right down to it. So there is an element of luck, the element of the unknown. But expected goals is much closer than any other statistic. It's better than telling the result of a game and the performances of the teams compared to possession, shots on target. You can ignore all those statistics and look at expected goals. And Hearts should have won 7 of the last 8 games. So they're performing okay.
Yeah, so, I'm not saying that we're not performing okay. But at the end of the day, it is a results-driven business. And you don't get a result. No, but that's just in general. That's just in general. It's not a case of it's a short-sighted approach. It's a case of in general across all of football, it's a results-driven business. You're telling me that if you've got a team who plays amazingly but they never win a game a season, the manager's going to stay.
Well, Graham Potter is the prime example. Graham Potter is developing something in Brighton. People who watch Brighton are saying they're playing well. They're not getting the results all the time because they might not have the best players, but they've got a tactical system in place that is slowly gradual over time. And if you actually look at the expected points table from expected goals, Brighton should be in the top 4. That's how well they're playing this season.
But then if you put Brighton in the Championship,
So,
in
James,
a league where they should be winning the games, they will probably be performing better than where they are. That's in my opinion, as a Hearts fan, that's what Hearts should be doing. Hearts are in a league where a lot of Hearts fans see as being below them, and we have struggled in a lot of games. Teams like Dunfermline, Wraith, Ayr, Dundee have pushed us all the way, and we've been lucky to scrape out results against them.
You're lucky you're going back to Premiership, because Falkirk was going to come up and give you a hard challenge as well this season or next season.
To be fair,
James.
something else that you said is that one of the best players for Hearts, we let go to Falkirk and Callum Morrison, and I think that was one of the worst mistakes we made. Was he was a good young up and coming player for us.
You touched on it there, Gavin, about Hearts letting players go. You let Whiten go to Dunfermline.
Yes. Yeah, we let him go to Dunfermline on loan, and it was a case of he's now going for a permanent move at the end of the season, but they're also pushing us for potential promotion. So it's one of those things that's like, what do you do in that? But to kind of just wrap it all up in that, and I think we all agree in terms of that it's been a shocking couple of games for Hearts and the performances.
Results.
Sorry. It's been a shocking couple of games for Hearts in terms of their results, James Bundy. But my question to you guys is, I'm not going to turn around and say, should Neilson be sacked just now? Because I think everyone would say that's not going to happen. It's ridiculous. Do you think Neilson will be in charge of Hearts next season, brackets potentially in the Premiership? We'll go to Mitchell first because he's not really said much.
I'm just judging by like the outcry and the inconsistent. I'm going to say no. I don't think he will be. I think Hearts will change again, probably to their detriment.
Shahan?
I don't have much knowledge of Hearts Football Club at all, so I will say no because of the outcry of people and fans.
Yeah.
Bruce, follower of Rangers Football Club, who let their club die, unlike Hearts fans?
do I think Robbie Neilson will be in charge next season? Yes, because Ann Budge, as lovely as she is, doesn't have a backbone. Do I think he should be in charge? No.
I'm going to go to James and we'll leave the high beat till last.
Do I think he'll be in charge? No, I don't. I think Ann Budge will capitulate. Should he be in charge? Yes, he should. Hearts will pay the price for sacking him.
Martin?
I'm trying to figure out what's best for me, actually, because I think either way, it's you're either going to take Neilson and him be pissed, or you're going to bring some other nomad in and he'll be pissed. So
I want an unbiased point of view, not your Hibs hat on. Take the Hibs hat off.
Do you think Neil Lennon will get the
No,
Hearts job?
keep the Hibs hat
Fuck off. Fuck off.
I think Lennon will go in and revolutionise the club, top to bottom.
And you tackle players to the ground and put their hands in their throat and then walk in and call their chairman a dyke. Aye, that's a good idea. On yourself, Neil Lennon.
Or fall to the deck when a pound coin gets thrown at him that's about this size.
I think we should all throw pound coins at Bruce and just see what his reaction is going to be.
You could buy their club many times.
Oh, well, if they're this size, I'll fall to the ground.
Well, if you throw a pound, you could buy the club.
Are we talking about Hearts? Are we still talking about Hearts?
No, we're talking about Rangers.
Remember when Craig White bought your club for £1? Remember that?
Yeah, that's long forgotten now.
Oh, sorry. When he bought your old club for £1.
To
go back to the topic,
the good thing, 55 titles transferred.
So you admitted they were transferred to that, so the mission. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Just to correct you and get back on topic.
It was a new company, wasn't it?
Bruce, to get back on topic and to correct you, first of all, you're turning around and saying 55 titles were transferred. No, they weren't. 54 was transferred and 55 was won.
Indeed, and now we have 55. You're correct. I do apologise.
No. Well, you're the one that said 55 was transferred, which means you're wrong. But then to answer.
Yeah, no, I said you were right. I apologise.
To answer my question from my point of view, I think Neilson should be given the time. James and all you guys know that I coached and I like to try and implement a long-term plan into it. However, Hearts fans are very impatient. Hearts fans demand a lot. When the place is bouncing at Tynecastle when it's full capacity, it's one of the best stadiums in Scotland in terms of atmosphere. Do I think he will be given the time because of the outcry? I will be surprised. But he needs to start getting rid of the deadwood, and we need to get in players who are good enough to perform better than what we have in terms of, and also use the academy. I want to see the academy producing what it used to in terms of 16-year-old Harry Cochrane coming on and putting Scotty Brown in his back pocket for 90 minutes. That's what I want to see. James, you can roll your eyes all you want, mate. It happens.
Is he sitting on the bench at Pittodrie next season to put Scott Brown in the bench? I don't know. But yeah, there you go. There's your broken heart from Gavin right there.
Broken hearts, mate. Broken hearts.
You can tell the pain in his voice. It's been a tough week. He has to drink some Stella to cope.
It's not even Stella. It's the Aldi knockoff Stella called San Etienne. Can't afford Stella.
Spoken like a true Heartsman. But no, going to our traditional round table, we've had a bad week of stories for Hearts, but now we're going to flip in our best stories in sport. So I think it's Mitchell going to lead on this. So take it away.
Yeah, so getting away from the depression that is Hearts, I asked the lads only yesterday to think of what would be their greatest sporting story, and a quick reason why. So I'm going to start with Bruce and see what his would be, and I'm guessing it's going to be Rangers probably winning their first title in 10 years.
Do you know, it's not at all. As we all know from previous podcasts, I know Bournemouth upside down, inside out, where they play, all the rest of it. So I thought it was only fitting that I picked up Bournemouth for my sports story. And in the 2008-2009 season, they were sitting 21st in League Two. They were on the brink of getting relegated to the National League. And in 5 seasons between 2009-10 and 2014-15, they managed to get their way all the way up to English Premiership. And I think I love that story. I think it's brilliant and a detriment to the work that everybody put in, especially Eddie Howe, who we all know is a pretty good manager in terms of bringing the clubs up from.
Will you be saying that if he's at Celtic next season?
Yeah, that's going to say. Well, no, I will
totally not. However, not at all. Well, it's going to be Roy Keane, though, isn't it? Is it going to be Eddie Howe? Is it going to be Roy Keane? Who knows? And then, as we all know, in 2020, they sadly got relegated to the Championship, which I'm an expert on. But I think those 5 seasons, 3 promotions, they get from where they were to where they ended up. Fantastic. That's my story.
Fair enough. Surprising you actually know where Bournemouth are, considering you thought they were in the Premier League at the start of this podcast. So, Shahan, what's yours?
I would probably say it's quite a recent one, and it will be the Scotland win coming against England at Twickenham, winning there since 1983. I think that's a great achievement for Scotland, and it shows that they're on the right path. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah, simple. Not what I expected from you, to be honest. James?
I'm going to say the comeback of Tiger Woods in winning the Masters at Augusta. In 2005, I was in St Andrews with my dad at the British Open, and I think I was the only, alongside my dad, we're the only Scotsmen cheering on Tiger Woods because he was up against Colin Montgomerie in the final round. It was the final pairing, and I was there with my wee red jersey on, watching Woods at 18. So being in St Andrews, 14 years later, watching it on my iPhone, seeing Tiger Woods win Augusta, considering everything that happened, I think that was a fantastic story. And other than that, Neil Armstrong winning the Tour de France in 1969. How he won it on the moon, I don't know, but it's an incredible achievement.
I was going to say, Nate, I'm surprised you didn't talk about when they played golf on the moon as being your greatest story. So, Martin, what was yours? I'm going to guess Hibs related.
I was going to go the whole Henderson to deliver route, but I think it's got to be the game semi-final of the playoffs in England with probably, I think it's about a minute and a half of great football where Leicester are breaking forward and Knockhart takes a dive, wins a penalty. Almunia saves the penalty, saves the rebound, ball breaks, goes up the wing. A couple of players from Watford, and then Deeney smashes it in the net, and that the fans invaded the pitch. It was just sort of you see Knockhart's face as well when all the fans are running past them, and the commentary as well at the same time from soccer sport, Sports Saturday, sorry, and that's my point.
Can't be any worse than Gary Neville. Some of Gary Neville's commentary with his, what was his goal celebration again? Was it Torres against Barca? Yeah. So Gavin, what is yours?
You know, there's so many, and I think like Hand of God, Super Davy Marshall saving the penalty.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to have to go back to Hearts and try and make me feel better about myself and go with the 5-1 Scottish Cup victory against Hibs in the final. Super really statue, you know, just to make Martin feel bad. I have to. As a Hearts fan, I need to make myself feel better. I need to remember all this stuff.
That was a team that you couldn't afford to have.
Yeah, pretty much.
Eventually, yeah.
However, if it wasn't for Marius Zaliukas, we wouldn't have won that, in terms that he was a rock for us in that competition in that day, and he's
Suso Santana diving.
sorely missed as Marius Zaliukas.
What's your
Mitchell,
favourite
what's
story,
yours?
Mitchell?
Mine's is going to be one that you've obviously probably never heard about. You've ever wanted to watch why hockey's dangerous? Sam Ward, playing for GB. GB are attacking. Ball rebounds out to his teammates. His teammates hits the shot. It hits it into tough, bounces up, smashes him in the side of the head. Has to go for surgery and becomes partially blind. So most people that would probably be clear over.
That's not the end of the story.
No, not at all. As I said, most people are being clear, but not for him. He's back 2 years later. I need to double check that. He's back playing at his top competitive level and down in England in the Premier League, in the Hockey League, and he's vying for his place for the GB squad for Tokyo 2021. It was Tokyo 2020, but we all know what happened there. And he looks very likely to get in because he looks like the same old player, just he's got a bit of a funky hairdo with the scar going right across his head. Yeah, that is my greatest story. I think it'll be
cracking story. I like that.
It'll be if he does get his place in the squad, which I'll be keeping an eye on. It'll probably be a great testament to him and how hard he's worked to play again.
I think everyone likes the comeback sporting stories, and we've had one in Scottish football this season. Hey, Bruce. And we've also, of course, we've not mentioned the best Scottish football related story, which is, of course, 11 men born within 30 miles of Glasgow lifting the European Cup in 1967. The club that or the trophy that your club chased, Bruce, and died, spent all the money trying to win it and never got there. But, oh well.
I thought we were finishing on a happy note.
We are finishing on a happy note.
That was a happy note for James.
Yes, the Lisbon Lions. Here you go. Delightful. But thank you for watching this week's episode of the Sports Hub podcast. Please do comment about your thoughts on all the topics. Should Scotland have won the Six Nations after winning away to England and in France? Who was the best driver in the F1 today? Was it Perez? Was it Hamilton? Verstappen? Georgie Williams? Jesus?
Georgie Williams.
I think even George Russell for Williams.
George
Russell.
George Russell, as you can tell. And should Hearts get rid of Robbie Neilson? Let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and the rest. So thanks for watching and tune in next week.
The Sports Art Podcast.